If you are wondering if beef liver is healthy for you, yes it is. It is super healthy for you, and our ancestors treated liver with a lot of respect and prized it highly because of its great health benefits. So what is so healthy about it? Let's break it down. This is a really high quality protein that you can eat. It is filled with folate, which is a naturally occurring folic acid, one of the most naturally occurring folic acids. It's high in iron that is easy for us to absorb in our bodies. It's also coupled with zinc and copper specifically, which is necessary to be able to absorb iron. It's got all of the B vitamins and then very high in vitamin A, and this is one of the most concentrated ways to have vitamin A found in nature, I believe. So very healthy for you, packed with nutrients, and will be just a real big boost for your health. Now, who is liver good for? Basically anyone who can use all of those nutrients I just talked about. But this is especially good for women who are pregnant or have just given birth, and after all those nutrients in their bodies are usually depleted after such a big process. And I know it can be controversial for pregnant women how much of this can be too much for our systems. I don't know. In ancient days, liver was usually saved for women that were pregnant and children because they wanted to give it to people in their societies that would need it the most. And then after women and children, it was given to the highest leaders or chiefs, the people who were of the most high stature, before giving it to anyone that was kind of common folk. So how much liver should you consume? How much is too much? It's hard to say. There isn't specific information about this yet, but I would think that God's design has sort of figured this out for us, because there's only a little part to the liver in comparison to how much meat is on the animal. And so I wonder if you were to hunt or buy one animal, you would have a lot more meat and just a little bit of liver to consume, so it almost proportions it for you in that way. That's my thoughts. So for example, we buy half a cow of beef at a time. That's just the way we found that we can buy quality meat for the cheapest. So our last cow that we bought was about 315 pounds, I believe. The liver weighs about 10 to 15 pounds in a large cow. That's about 4.5 to 7 kilograms, I think. So in comparison to how much of the rest of the meat there is, there's only a little part of the liver. Now, I read some really interesting stories about how our ancestors viewed meat and specifically liver. I'll link the link to this blog. I think it was called The Ethical Butcher, if you want to read more about it there. And the post ends with some really good food for thought, specifically about this tribe in Western Siberia, which lived totally different than we do today. I mean, I think they're one of the most secluded communities in the world, and they basically eat a ton of meat. They spend a lot of time outside in the cold, and they eat mostly one animal for a long period of time, and they would eat it from head to tail. So pretty much consume the entire animal, as much of it as possible anyways. And then they would frequently fast because they would have to wait long periods before they probably could hunt another animal or found another animal in the cold. And so just so different from how we live today, especially in Western societies, but they were so much more healthy than us. And I'm very curious about that, especially about, how usually in the winter we all get colds and flus and sick. Well, I wonder if it's because our lifestyle just totally slows down, we spend a lot of time indoors, we probably eat too much, all of those things, in comparison to this community that spent a lot of time outside, eating a lot of meat, not really much else, and then fasting for long periods. Very interesting to me. Anyway, back to liver. How do you eat liver? Honestly, it's got a really strong texture and taste for most people's palates, especially in just how our culture has shifted away from sour and tangy kind of taste to a lot more sweet. And so this is probably going to be a big adjustment if you've never had liver, and if you have had it, a lot of people, maybe you included, can't stand the texture or the flavor. It is definitely different, and so you'll take some time probably to get used to it, which is totally possible. And so you may want to start off with just mixing it with some other things like onions or mushrooms, just something else to kind of musk the heavy texture and flavor until your palate becomes used to it, and then it just becomes easy to eat it. Now, when you're cooking the liver, I usually do this in a pan with butter or with oil, whichever you prefer. And then the key is not to overcook it. So I'm usually just doing a few minutes on each side, just until it's cooked a little bit, and then stop. Now, of course, you want it to be fully cooked, not raw. You could have it raw, it's beef, so it can be medium rare is fine too, but you want to make sure it's cooked fully through. I just like to cut it in the middle and just have a peek inside to see how much more needs cooking or if it's totally done. And then as soon as you don't see any more light pink, take it off, it's done. And then you can couple that with some other things that you're eating with it to help that texture and flavor, or just eat it straight. And when you eat it, I love this picture that it was painted on the Ethical Butcher website. He says, when you eat it, really take the moment to enjoy and appreciate the benefit of all of the minerals packed into this meat that you are now gifting to your body. Like, just think about it, process it, and appreciate it. And I think if we can eat in this way, well, we can really customize ourselves to eat anything, and we'll just be a whole lot better for it. So I encourage you to go buy some liver if you haven't, and if you're just figuring out about its health benefits and you want to get more into it, do it, try it. Try to cook with it too, and if you're having a hard time with the texture or the flavor, like I said, mix it up with something else and enjoy the super nutrient rich superfood that liver can be. I hope this has been helpful to you, and if you like content like this, would you consider subscribing to this channel, liking this video? That would really help us out. I also plan to make a whole lot more content about growing as much food as we can here on our small yard, and then storing it for as long as possible so that we can eat cheaply and as healthy as we can pretty much all year round. So if you're interested in that, that'll be coming up, and I hope that you found this helpful. Until the next video, cheers.